It's recording.
Awesome. Thank you. Well, thank you all for joining. We are super excited to have Katherine join us today, the founder and CEO of the Mom Complex, which, if you haven't checked out her stuff, in a nutshell, helps company develop better products and services and experiences for moms. She and her team have worked alongside companies such as Johnson & Johnson, Chobani, Pinterest, and many, many more. And her latest and greatest I'm super excited for is her accomplishment. She is now a published author. Her book, Slay Like a Mother, is available for pre-order. I got mine ordered already, coming out in March. And I am super excited because Katherine and I, for those of you who don't know, went to college together. And so luckily I've been friends on Facebook with her over the years. And she would always share her blog posts, and every single time I would read her blog, I'd be like, that is me. Oh my God, she is in my head, like every single one of them. And if you haven't, check out her blog at katherinewintsch.com. I will share those links for you also, so you can get your hands on them. Slay Like a Mother is the name of her book, but seriously have been like so inspired by her every single day, every time I read her blog, and cannot wait to hear from her today. So especially with the mommy guilt, the fear, self-doubt, overcoming rejection and objections. And without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Katherine.
Great. Well, hello, everybody. And Lisa, thanks for asking me to do this. This is all very new to me. As Lisa said, I just wrote my first book, and I'm really excited about it. And this is really the first group that I've talked to about it, which I guess I'm going to be doing a whole lot more of this. I should get used to it. But I'm excited to see how it goes. And I thought I would talk about just a couple of topics that I usually talk about in my blog and certainly feature in the book. And then please feel free to ask questions as we go, jump in, we can make it a discussion. So the premise of my book is, as Lisa said, I run a company called the Mom Complex. And so I've been studying the lives of mothers for about 10 years. And I have studied mothers in 17 countries around the world. So I've just been so blessed and privileged to have this up close and personal access to what's going on inside the minds of mothers. And it brought me such relief in my life. I thought I was the only mother that was a complete trash fire, and everybody else had everything under control and figured out, and they looked like Kelly Ripa dancing around in high heels, and I was crying or drinking myself to sleep most nights. And so it was such a relief for me to hear from women all over the world say that they were so filled with guilt and doubt and anxiety and stress that it really changed my life, and it allowed me to stop putting so much pressure on myself. And I am a recovering insecure overachiever. So much of my story is wrapped up in a previous career in marketing and advertising, and my entire identity was in my career. It was who I was as a human, and I was just collecting titles and trophies like they were trading cards. I couldn't get enough. I was the VP, I wanted to be the SVP. When I was the SVP, I wanted to be the EVP, and it was just a rat race to freaking nowhere is what it was. But I didn't realize that. And so on this self-help journey, which I have lots of other book recommendations I'll tell you about, but that self-help journey really, really helped me be less hard on myself and have less doubt and a whole lot less guilt. And so I'll talk through some of those concepts unless anybody has any questions. Okay. So the first thing is just that, like I said, I did research in 17 countries around the world, and I found that the number one emotion that all moms share in common is doubt. And more specifically, it's deep-seated self-doubt. So I doubt whether I'm doing enough, I'm not mom enough, sister enough, wife enough, boss enough, coach enough, leader enough. And so if you have that, you just have to know that it's quite normal, that most mothers that I've studied are kind of operating from that deficit. But one of the things I talk about is the difference between struggling and suffering. So struggling is being a working mother and having young kids, teenage kids, whatever age kids, it doesn't matter. They all come with problems. But you're just tied up in the thick of that, and it's so exhausting. And so, but struggling is actually the goal. You're never going to get out of struggling. Motherhood has always been hard. It always will be hard. You know, it was hard when mothers were sleeping in caves, and it's going to be hard when mothers are, you know, in flying cars. We're not going to get out of that. So to expect that we would is a recipe for disaster. And so, but the goal is, how do you stay above the line, and how do you just struggle? Versus suffering is when you dip below the line and you yell at yourself all day. You say you're not good enough, you're not thin enough. You compare yourself to other women. You say yes to everybody when you should be saying no. And the beauty, but maybe the terror of that scenario of dipping below the line is that it's your fault. It's self-imposed. And so if you mentally allow yourself to live in that space of attacking yourself all day long for not being more or doing more, it's a really painful place to be, but you do have the power to overcome it. And kind of strong arm. In the book, I personify self-doubt as this dragon, and it's this beast that lives inside of you. I talk about it a little bit on a blog post that just came out yesterday, about this beast that lives inside of you and just inhales everything you do wrong and nothing you do right, and then just blows it back in your face, you know, and it basically telling you that you suck all day, every day. And so I'll start there with the concept of the mean voice in your head. And it's something that a lot of women, honestly, are just coming to realize, that you have a negative voice in your head that says you suck all day long. So when I do workshops with women, I ask them to take a minute, and I'll ask you to do this now. Take a second and just write down the last terrible thing that you said to yourself. So like internal dialogue, internal voice in your head. What's the last terrible thing that you said to yourself? Anybody brave enough to share?
I don't mind. So I actually just recently got out of the shower, and kind of probably because I was thinking about this, I literally looked in the mirror and was like, I hate my boobs. Always have. Even when like I've lost the weight, now I'm like, oh, they're just saggy boobs.
Now they're just saggy boobs. Yes. Yeah, it's interesting when I do this exercise with moms that nobody has ever had to go back to the previous day. You know, it's always from that morning. And I mean, you know, it's only 1 o'clock in the afternoon. And sometimes I do these workshops at 10 in the morning, and people are annihilating themselves. Anybody else have an attack on yourself you're willing to share?
That I'm a bad mom.
Yeah.
I say that often when I question some of the things I say or do with my kids.
Yeah. How old are your kids?
They are 5 and 8.
Okay, I'll give you a little trick. I talk about this in my book. Is when my kids were around that age, mine are 9 and 11 now, but when I was just really lacking the confidence that I was doing a good job, sometimes when I tucked them in at night, I would say to my daughter, you know, Layla, what makes me a good mommy? And it's totally leading the witness. But when my daughter was 5, she said, you're nice to me and you buy me clothes. And I thought to myself, well, maybe the bar is not as high as, you know, maybe she doesn't eat broccoli 3 meals a day and, you know, ace the kindergarten test, you know, whatever, that's not the goal. Like the goal is I need to be kind to her and take her to Target every once in a while. So it's a good kind of level set of that barometer, whether you're doing a good job as a mother. Anybody else want to share? No pressure. You don't have to.
I'll go. As I'm sitting here with like all these papers and like all these notebooks, I'm like, I am never going to get like organized. I just always feel like a hot mess in organization.
Yes. So you can see just the 3 examples, it really varies. Sometimes it's physical attacks if I don't like my boobs. Sometimes it's the job, you know, that I'm doing, or something I didn't do this morning with the kids, or, you know, I'm not home with them on their snow day. And then sometimes it's tactical and practical of like things that I need to do and I'm always behind. And so the important thing with the voice in your head is first and foremost to acknowledge that it's there. We just go through life yelling at ourselves all day, every day, saying our boobs suck, we're a terrible mom, and we can't keep our life together. But just acknowledging that that's happening is very powerful. And so what I want you to do is start to pay attention to when you hear the voice. And when you do, say to yourself, oh, it's happening. You know, there it is. So that, and the metaphor that I like to use here is it's kind of like shining a spotlight on a shadow. If the shadow is kind of following you around, but if you have this spotlight, which is awareness, like you're aware that it's happening, it makes it dissipate. And so while I haven't completely, rid myself of the negative voice in my head, nobody ever will, but it does help me acknowledge it and help it go away faster. So that's one tip. Another tip is if anybody's familiar with Eckhart Tolle's work, the book, The Power of Now, is fantastic, very heady, very philosophical, but really amazing about how our minds work and how we can stay in the present moment. And one of the things Eckhart talks about is that the mean voice in our head, which again, everybody has, it's always attacking us for something we didn't do in the past or something we might screw up in the future. It's very rarely based right here in this moment. And so, it's I was a bad mother yesterday. You're thinking about that, replaying that, or you're thinking about how organized you need to be in the future to get more done. And so a little mantra that I use is I usually say, right here, right now, to just like snap myself back into the present moment. So when my head is reeling over, oh my God, what's for dinner? How are we going to get this done? Are we going to get home in time? I'm a bad mother. You say right here, right now. And it's like, whoop. And again, it's like that moment of awareness. And then the final tip is, if it really continues a lot, is think about how you would speak to a friend. If your friend said, I hate my boobs, you wouldn't say, yeah, you probably should. You would say, are you kidding? And like, look at your hips. Like, they're amazing. I wish I had your hair, And so I usually think about that too. We would never say to a friend who was struggling, if your friend said, I'm a bad mom, like you would boost her up and you would support her because you love her. But when it's the own voice in your head, we just let it run wild. And if you're interested in more information on this topic, this book is called The Untethered Soul. And it's a really great book. It's very short. It's a quick read. And it's all about the voice in your head and how you can detach from it, how it can still be there, and but you don't have to follow. And, you can hear the voice in the head without believing it. And he talks about how my favorite part of the book is when he says that if we extracted the mean voice from our head and we turned it into a human being, and that human being followed us around all day, every day, and said to us what we say to ourselves, like, you wouldn't last a day. You wouldn't make it to lunchtime. You would completely lose your mind. And you certainly wouldn't trust and follow that person's advice, right? You would think that they were such a jerk. So this is a really good book for kind of getting your head wrap around that. And then the other topic I'll talk about is saying no. And I have a couple different tips on that and kind of philosophies. And so one tip is something that somebody shared with me. It's just a tactical exercise for how to say no that makes me laugh, and hopefully it will for you too. So when I was working in marketing and advertising, I came back from maternity leave. Somebody really senior in the company said, what time do you want to protect? Like, what's important to you now that you're back and you have this new life and 2 kids? And I thought babies like ate dinner with families. I didn't really realize that that wasn't the case. So I was like, I want to protect dinner time. I want to have dinner with my new big family, you know, and didn't realize the baby would be asleep at like 7 o'clock. But anyway, that's what I wanted to protect. And so he said, Katherine, I want you to think about your job as a teenage boy that's trying to make out with you. And your job's mission is to get as much out of you as possible, and still want more. And so it's your job to draw your boundaries, which you are and are not willing to do, you know, by making out with this guy. But you have to draw them before the heat of the moment. Because if you wait until the heat of the moment, you're going to cave, because this guy is going to be like, oh, but I love you, you know. And maybe it's because I made out with too to just always want more. And so what that means is can you hear me? Oh, okay. Something like went bonkers on my internet real quick. So what it means is you make it public, you know, to your company or your team, and you say, I'm going to protect dinner time, and I'm going to be offline every night from 5 to 6:30, and I'll be back on, you know, later. But this is a boundary for me. It's something that I would like to draw, and I'd love to have your help, you know, protecting it. Because if you don't, then what happens in this example, let's say you do want to protect that window, every day at 5 o'clock, you're like, oh, but I'm just going to answer one more email, you know, and people are like, oh, Lisa, we really need you to do this. And if you're not on this call, it's not going to be the same. And you cave and you do things that you don't want to do. So I have a really fun time saying no now to people, because I just picture on them the face of some like nasty teenage boy that wants to make out with me. And I'm like, nope. You know, they're like, do you want to do this speaking engagement in Singapore? And I'm like, absolutely not. I will not make out with you. And so that has helped me a lot. And what I'll say too is that take baby steps. The more you say no, the more you will realize that people don't care about you as much as you think people care about you, and the world keeps spinning. And so you say, no, I can't do that call at 2 o'clock. And somebody says, okay, could you do it at 4? And you're like, oh God, that was easy. You know, all this time I've been rolling over at everyone's request to accommodate, and you start to say no more, and it becomes like this superpower, and you get stronger at it the more you do it. But you have to do it to start learning that the world keeps spinning. And then the most important thing I'll say about saying no is, I hear this from women all the time, that we're just so worried about who we're saying no to. You know, we're going to let our husband down. We're going to let our boss down, you know, our best friend, or the 800th baby shower that you have to go to. You know, we worry so much about the other people. But I say, you know, stop thinking about the people that you're saying no to, and thinking about the people that you're saying yes to, and you're giving all your yeses away. And what I believe is, you know, the teenage boy thing is like a funny little trick. But at the end of the day, I believe if you are giving away all of your free time, it is because you believe other people deserve it more than you do. That's what you believe. That you believe that your son's teacher deserves your hour of volunteer more than you deserve it, more than you deserve to take a break, to go for a walk, to get a massage, whatever. And that's what your values are communicating. If you have no time to yourself, it's because you believe other people are more worthy of your most precious asset than you are. And that's a bad place to be. So it's much deeper than like, oh, I just can't say no, you know me. You know, it's a much deeper problem. And again, if you start, dipping your toe in the water, it's helpful. But I think just having that philosophical view that you don't love yourself enough to protect time for you, because otherwise you would. And it is possible. And, I do it so much more now than I ever did before, but I get just as much done. Like, I'm just as good, if not better, of a mother, wife, spouse, because I have time for me and I make time for me. And the way that I do it is any mother, would say, my calendar tomorrow is bonkers and I can't, my personal time. And I say that's accurate. Tomorrow is probably a trash fire, but 3 months from now, your calendar is not a mess and it's not full 3 months from now. So fast forward 3 months from now and put reoccurring meetings on your calendar. I do them. I always color code them in purple so that it's kind of like a heat map. And if I fast forward to like my next week and there's very little purple on there, that's like my mojo color, then it's concerning. And I just have a visual reminder that I'm putting other people before myself and the needs of other people before me. So for me, it could be anything from meditation time to yoga to taking a walk. It doesn't matter, but I'll put, 5 or 6 blocks on my calendar, and I might delete a couple. I might end up only doing, 3 or 4, but it protects the time. And then I can choose to delete it, but I'm not like, oh, look, my calendar's full, I can't fit it in, because it just doesn't work that way. And the whole metaphor here is that if you took a mason jar and you put the big rocks in the jar first, the things that are most important to you, you will fit all the other crap, all the pebbles and the kids stuff and the life stuff and the work stuff. It will fit. But if you do it the other way and you try to put all those pebbles in first and all those 30-minute meetings and requests, you can't get the big rocks in the jar, after. So that's also something that has helped me a lot. So I know we have a few minutes left. I'm happy to answer any questions or talk about anything more specifically.
This has been awesome so far, and I think just so you know, one of the vital behaviors as a coach is for personal development, and the goal is like 10 to 15 minutes a day. So those book recommendations will definitely come in handy. So if there's other ones, but the other thing, I guess my question would be that you haven't touched on, but I know I've read a little bit from your blogs, but your tips for overcoming rejections, because I know that's something that we deal with, we're so passionate about sharing our products or what we're doing and like, pick me, choose me, here's this. And then you hear every objection out there. So what are your, how have you overcome that? And what kind of kept pushing you to keep going and keep at with, whichever avenue you are working towards?
Yeah, I would say on the sales side, so I own my own company. I'm an entrepreneur and I'm kind of constantly selling, and I hate it. I hate that part of it. And, the rejection hurts. The one thing that's helped me is I think for too long in my business, I felt like I was bothering people with my offering. Like, oh, I don't want to interrupt, like, oh, we have this thing that I was truly selling something to them. And then someone helped me just shift that perspective that like what we do at the Mom Complex is extraordinary and it's amazing and it changes people's lives. And look what you all do in terms of the impact that you have on people's lives. So that was just a reframe from me that I'm not bothering people. I'm trying to help people. And if those people don't want to be helped by the Mom Complex, that's fine. Like that's a professional decision, but it just helped me be more proud when I was selling it, that it was something that would change people's lives. And I certainly think that you all have that too. And then on the bigger person, like the power of intentions and things aligning at the right time. And I have gotten really good at dealing with rejection in that I can almost guarantee it's going to be for a reason. that it strengthened me in some way. Or, I mean, my book deal got rejected for 4 years by 23 publishers, and it ended up with the perfect publisher. And if it had happened 4 years ago when I wanted it to happen, it just wouldn't have been the same. It wouldn't have been the same book, you know. Day-to-day ones, but on the bigger rejections, I just choose to believe that the light will be shown on it one day and it will all make sense. And the best example I have there is Lisa and I went to JMU together, and I really wanted to go to UVA. I mean, it was my life goal. I always thought I would go there, and I was so crushed when I got rejected. They were like, no, thank you. You are not smart enough. And I was really rejected because it was my dream. And lo and behold, I went to JMU and I met my husband, who is, you know, the most important person in my life and so amazing. And I just think all the time, if that dream had come true, if what had happened, what I wanted to have happen happened, you know, I'd be married to some bozo. I don't know. Like, it was just, he changed a lot in my life. And so I have that as a reference point. And I had a really big partnership that I was forming with the book and Johnson & Johnson. And it was really close to being signed. And they were going to buy 16,000 books and gift baskets for moms. Like, it was a big deal. And it fell through at the last minute. And I just chose to believe in that moment something will happen in my life, and it might not be, I might not realize it for 5 to 10 years, but something will happen when I will say, thank God that J&J deal fell through, because it allowed me to do X, Y, Z. And so I don't put as much pressure on myself to get everything I want, because you can't always control it. And I believe in all that woo-woo stuff. I don't think there's any coincidences. You know, I think things happen at the right time for the right reason.
Awesome. Thank you. Anybody else have questions for Katherine? No?
I just have a little feedback. I so appreciated your last answer. And Lisa, you worded the question that I was thinking in my head way better than I did. And it exactly answered what I feel like a lot of us hold back because of the objections. And I think we are constantly like, well, how do we overcome objections? And we ask the question over and over again. And sometimes we just get these like foo-foo responses of, oh, just do more personal development and it'll just be fine. But I like how you worded it and really choosing to make it a happy moment when you get that rejection, because there's a reason for it. And I don't know. I haven't thought of it that way. So thank you. I very much appreciate that.
Yeah, it does really help you in the moment to just kind of give it up. You know, like, just let it go to the universe and someday, and almost kind of look forward to seeing what's, like, I can't wait to see what's going to happen that's better than the J&J, you know, opportunity ever was. And it's just good to not get attached to, you know, your self-worth being attached to having certain sales goals. I mean, that's very volatile, you know, and you just have to know that you're bigger and stronger and better than any, you know, rejection, but also stronger than any great thing that happens to you, you know, that it's bigger than those day-to-day no's.
I have a question.
Mhm.
I wondered if you have any like special routine, or like if you've heard of the Miracle Morning. I just love to know like what other successful people are doing. So is there any specific thing you do every day to like get you in that frame of mind?
And a lot of it right now, but I'll go through phases where it's really sticky for me, and it might be 15 minutes, and it's before my house wakes up, and I go down just to my home office. I don't have some, you know, fancy place that I do it. And I'll listen to like a guided meditation. So Headspace is a good app. 10% Happier is a good meditation app, but you can also just have tons of like free, you could listen to it on YouTube. But It's very calming and centering for me. And the only way I can describe it is it's like glue that it's like throughout the day, it like sticks to other things. So I might be in a meeting at lunchtime and something really annoys me or bothers me, or I get rejected by J&J or whatever. But I'm immediately gone. It immediately draws me back to that morning when I was like sitting in silence, listening to the meditation, that my life, my worth, my self-respect is bigger than my job. And it's really powerful. And so a lot of people think meditation is about peace and calm in that moment, like for those 15 minutes or however long you do it for, but it's really not to me. I mean, yes, that's calming, but it keeps me calm throughout the day. You know, it kind of pulls me back to that. So I do that a lot. And one other thing that I do that's just throughout the day, this is really powerful, is you can't become your emotions or they'll just eat you alive, you know, if you're really fearful or anxious about something. And so when you feel those emotions coming up, a way to detach yourself from them is to say, hello, fear, or hello, anxiety. And it's really powerful because you're not saying, I'm angry, I'm anxious, because you're not actually your emotions. You're able to say, hello, fear, or hello, disappointment, like if you get rejected. And it reduces the power of that emotion when you detach yourself from it and you remember and remind yourself that you're not the emotion, you're the being that's experiencing that emotion.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. I don't know if anybody else wanted to unmute and ask real quick. I know we've hit our time limit here and can't thank you enough for taking your time, because I know between the holidays and everything else you have going on in your travel schedule, your time is very precious. So thank you for saying yes to us and having that time with us.
See, you're worth time.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I've honestly been looking forward to this for so long.
Lisa, I'll send you a link to one of my blog posts that has my favorite self-help books.
Okay, great.
And that way you could share it out, and happy reading.
Thank you. Well, good luck to you and happy holidays. And thank you everybody for your time and for joining with us today.
Thank you.
Thank you.